So, watched the Texans preseason game from Saturday this morning. I refuse to watch a preseason game live. Sorry. Just never going to do it again. Spent 6-hour days covering that team. In the summer, nah. I'm having my one last Saturday before football season starts, and I will be occupied for the next 4-5 foreseeable months where I can bring in a notepad out to a bar and writing notes like a weirdo. So I didn't watch the game live. Paul, why are you bragging about not watching a game live? You cover sports for a living. Fair point. This game that we saw featured a couple of interesting things going forward. First of all, Xavier Hutchinson. I really like him. And I think that right now, for Jaden Higgins, for Jalen Knoll, the two receivers that the Texans drafted this year, it's going to be an injury that gets them on the field over Hutchinson. And you'll see them from time to time rotating in and out. But right now, fantasy football players, pay attention to this. If you are looking for a guy that is actually going to give you immediate returns, you're looking at 1, obviously Nico Collins, 2, Christian Kirk. And if you need to take a third guy at the end of a draft or something like that, Hutchinson's the guy for now. If you are in maybe a keeper league or something like that, okay, think about Higgins, think about Knoll. But this is not anything against those two. It's just that's where Hutchinson is. Hutchinson has really come into his own. I think he has done a hell of a job as a late-round pick with this team. And, I think it really goes to show you that Iowa State breeds gamers who you might look at and not think too much of, but, Brock Purdy, Xavier Hutchinson, it's a good program that they got there, and that's why the Texans took 2 wide receivers from that program in this year's past draft. But I do think there's a pretty big gap for now between Higgins and Knoll and Xavier Hutchinson. This pass rush would be able to withstand some injury, is the other takeaway I had from Saturday's game. The depth that the Texans have on the defensive line is, I think, really impressive. And in this game, especially the first drive of the game, whether it's Darrell Taylor or it's Tim Settle or some of these other guys who are going to be rotating in and out, the Texans have a lot of depth on the defensive line, on the edge and on the interior. And, if you want to make a case that the Texans could have the best defense in the NFL this season, that's where you're making that case. Over the long marathon of a season, they have enough bodies to throw in there and potentially step in, say a key player goes down. So you saw that early on in the game. Dameon Pierce played. We finally saw him out on the field. I thought Pierce looked pretty good. Was he as impressive as Woody Marks? I think Marks was more impressive, and I think Marks as a receiver, it's going to be very interesting to see if he actually sees any playing time this coming season. They do seem to have a love of Dare Ogunbowale, who is a special teamer and a running back, but also has pretty good hands. But I thought Pierce, in this offense, works. And I think we're going to continue to look at last year all season long and wonder what could have been had it not been Bobby Slowick, had it not been Chris Strausser, the former offensive line coach. I think you're just going to feel a lot better about this running game going forward this year. They, over the course of these preseason games, looked a lot better. That's not to say that all of a sudden the Texans are going to have a top rushing attack in the league. We don't know what the hell is going on with Joe Mixon. Is he going to be back for week 1? Honestly, I'm leaning towards no. But I like Pierce. I think Pierce proved that he can play in this offense. I like Woody Marks. I don't know what to expect out of Nick Chubb. Chubb did not play in this preseason game, which generally is a good sign for him, but I don't really know how I feel about Chubb the player. Chubb did have moments in that second preseason game where you're like, oh yeah, he can run through contact. But there are other moments in training camp where you're looking at him and you're like, I don't know about that. What else is there to go off of in this preseason game? I don't know what's going on with the Texans long snapper situation, but I kind of want John Weeks back. That guy who was in there on Saturday, Blake Ferguson, who they signed a couple of days ago. Did they sign him because they're not feeling good about the guy who's ahead of him on the depth chart? But, I mean, he had 2 of the worst snaps I've ever seen. And that can't happen. And you know who never did that? John Weeks. And I'm very curious about what evaluation, and this is a long snapper, I get it, but a bad snap by a long snapper is something that is very, very, very noticeable. You should never notice a long snapper. That's the whole point. They're supposed to be unassuming. You look at him like, wait, that guy's in the NFL? Because that's generally what you would say if you looked at John Weeks. You know, he's got a Rudy build. As far as like guys who are on the line, he's smaller. He's smaller and I'm not going to say fat, but he does not look like a conventional NFL player. But he was really good at what he did to the point where he's the longest tenured Texan ever. So this guy comes in and God, it was awful. Awful.
Yeah, and it's something where you don't even, again, when John Weeks was here for 20 years, we didn't really talk about him as like what he did or his quality. It was just that he was here for a long time. Like, oh, another Texas season, John Weeks, huh? Look at him.
Yeah.
He's around, 46. But when you have a bad long snapper, it's just like, oh my God.
It's so bad.
It's like debilitating. I don't know how you scout long snappers.
Well, you definitely don't get guys like that.
Yeah, but he obviously had some good tape, right? I assume.
I hope so. Because that was the worst tape. That was the worst tape I've ever seen for a long snapper. So
can we breaking news? Blake Ferguson's been cut.
I would assume he.
What's the case for him not to be cut?
I assume he's already cut. I mean, and if he hasn't been cut by now, I mean, then he's got some friends in high places, and that's a bigger outrage than Shedeur Sanders not playing in a preseason game. That guy, that was rough. But to be fair, Graham Mertz, I thought he looked awful. Graham Mertz looked great on Saturday. Graham Mertz actually looked great.
Yeah, the reverse Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah,
like bad first game, good second game.
Now he was going up against backups, but he looked actually really good. I was surprised by his mobility. Did not know he had that in the bag, especially coming off the injury that he suffered at Florida. Had a really nice crossing route throw to Xavier Hutchinson. Knew exactly when the right time was to take off and scramble. Got to say, obviously C.J. Stroud's the starting quarterback for this team, but I was pretty impressed by both Davis Mills throughout training camp and in the preseason. And they had some rough moments in the preseason. Davis Mills did, but that's not a bad quarterback room. Who would have thought? Yeah. Like after C.J. Stroud, based off of the first tape we saw of Graham Mertz and honestly just the entirety of the Davis Mills experience. But looking pretty good. So if a bunch of quarterbacks die for the Texans this season, Mertz might be fun.
I mean, it's happened before.
It has.
With the Texans.
2014, goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Rotating through bodies.
2011.
15. Yeah. Oh, yeah. For sure.
There's TJ Yates potential. I think he could be better than TJ Yates.
Good. Very much good.
I know that's sacrilegious, but I think he could. I think he can at least. If we come to the position where Graham Mertz has to play, I will think back on this preseason game and be like, you know what? It wouldn't be crazy if he's okay.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be crazy.
I got to give him a lot of credit because he frustrated me at Florida, and then I watched his tape, and I was like, man, I like him from the SEC documentary. He seems like a cool guy, but that first game was not so good. So happy for him. He looked good. I think he will be on an NFL team this season, and I hope it's the Texans. So there you go, guys. That is the recap of the Texans' convincing win over the Detroit Lions to wrap up the preseason.